Welcome to SpanReads, not your typical rereads podcast, a 17th shard series where we reread the Cosmere and are giant nerds about it. Today we will be talking about Shadows of Self. Joining me is Jess.
Hello, I'm Lady Lameness.
Ian.
Hey, I'm your writer.
Rosemary.
Hi, I'm Kaymyth.
Ben.
Oh, you also know me as Overlord Jebus.
And apparently a book as well.
The personification of Shadows of Self.
That's terrifying. And I am Michelle, or firstRainbowRose. As a reminder, the spoiler policy for this episode is we will be having spoilers for Mistborn Era 1, Alloy of Law, and Shadows of Self. Today's episode will be about characters and character relationships.
So as I mentioned last episode, I kind of forgot how good Marasi's character arc is in this book. And there's just a point where she realizes how much of an issue Wax is. And before that, like, she was still kind of wrapped in this bubble of looking, like, she still looks up to him, but not understanding how other people also see him. And there is this fantastic conversation with Aradel about how Wax is perceived by him and kind of the police force and the people who haven't had to deal with who haven't been nobility. And I have a passage I really want to read. There is a conversation between Marasi and Aradel about whether Aradel is upset with Wax, and Marasi is surprised. And the conversation kind of follows no, not at all. I'm not upset. And she clicks on to the fact that he kind of is, and that is a practiced answer, so that he can still be civil and not cause issues while he is on the job. Could I have the non-practice version? Aradel looked her over. Let's just say that it must be damn nice, Lieutenant, to have other people to clean up your messes for you. He nodded to her, then stalked from the room. Russ, was that how Aradel saw Wixillium? A rogue nobleman accustomed to getting what he wanted, blunt in ways that Aradel could never be? The Constable General wasn't a nobleman and had to worry about funding, politics, the future of his men. Wixillium could just butt in and do what he liked. Shooting and letting his status, both as an Allomancer and a House Lord, get him out of trouble. That perspective was eye-opening. Wixillium was a trouble, a worthwhile trouble, as he did get things done, but almost as bad as the problems he solved. And I just love how she has that moment where it clicks, and then she can see it from almost a wider angle, and the issues that she had kind of brushed aside in her mind before suddenly stood out, and just the fact that she says, wow, that was an eye-opener. He is a problem. It's just, I love it. I love that character development for Marasi, and I love the change in the relationship between Marasi and Wax. And as I was saying last episode, how she becomes much more independent from him and goes her own path to do what is ultimately the same thing, but the path she takes is the one that she thinks is what's actually going to help. And good God, I love that so much.
It's kind of eye-opening to watch her kind of go, oh, wait, I see him for what he is, but other people don't get this opportunity. And it's almost like I have a hero worship, but not quite, because I see the man behind. But other people don't even hero worship him. And it's kind of interesting to see her entire worldview change completely.
I do like how this book makes it clear that Marasi is shaking off that crush. I mean, she's past it, even though they don't really explicitly talk about it too much in this book. It's obvious. And I've seen some people go, well, that would seem to be resolved way too easily. And I'm just like, no, I relate to this really hard, because I mean, when I was in my youthful years, I could burn through a crush and then go, why did I have a crush on this person 5 days later? I mean, it's just what happens? You get a crush on someone, then you get to know them, and you're like, maybe not. You know, it's just the way your emotions work sometimes, especially when you're young and you're still trying to figure out what you want.
And there's such an age difference between them as well that I feel like she's noticed that. Like, she kind of seemed to reconcile at the end of the last book that nothing would ever happen, even if she did still have that crush. And I think part of that was the age difference between them, and it was the hero worship that led to her having this crush on him.
And I like that this is the direction we went, because in Alloy, the traditional storytelling is like the main guy and the main girl always end up together. Yep. And they're not. It's like they're realizing, like, no, they are not a good match. It's like, and Marasi is like coming more into her own. And it's a bit like when at the point where children realize that their parents are people, and not omnipotent beings that give you food and take care of you all the time. Well, so it is like a level of maturity that, like, she was capable of in Alloy. Like, I don't want to say like she was immature in Alloy. It's just like she just hadn't had the opportunity to have this realization yet. Like, she needed to be able to get to know him and also get to see other perspectives.
Well, and talking about their relationship, I love that, because I said that when I finished book 1, I went to Brandon and I was like, okay, so when are they actually going to hook up? Really? No, really? And I remember going into this book knowing that they weren't going to end up together, but I still felt like there was supposed to be, like, when you read the first book at the end, you expect them to get together. Like, you expect for him to rebuff her at first and then eventually admit to his feelings. But by the end of this book, you're like, oh, no, I am actually okay with the fact that is not going to be a relationship. And Brandon does a really good job of taking you from, because I love romance. It's a thing for me. I adore it. So I was like, okay, I'm still kind of set on this. And by the end of the book, I was like, okay, I'm actually okay with them just being friends, and I'm okay with this not being a thing.
And I do feel like there are some clues in there on Wax's end as well, because there are some points where Wax thinks about how much like Lessie Marasi is, and I'm like, oh, honey, you haven't actually taken the time to really get to know Marasi if you're thinking that. I mean, especially when you get further into the books and you read more from of Lessie on screen, you're like, they're not really that much alike, unless you're talking about a woman with a personality. And oh, honey.
It seems like he's projected Lessie onto Marasi as the first woman that he is happy to really interact with.
And so it's just that other set of clues that tell you that them getting together would not have been healthy in the long run.
Speaking of Wax and Marasi, one of the things I do love about the two of them is that conversation that Wax has with Harmony, where they're having this entire discussion about something else, and Sazed at the end goes, oh, by the way, stop trying to get rid of her. I worked really hard to get her into position. And if you keep on trying to shove her away, you're gonna cause problems. So knock it off. And then it fun to see him like actually use that and go, wait, right, I'm supposed to help, or I'm supposed to make sure to include her. Hey, Marasi, do you want to do this thing? And she's like, wait, what?
The facial expressions make it there. It's great.
I have a quote that I think leads on very well from that. And it's to do with Marasi getting into the position she is and how Wax is related to that. And it's after she has had the revelation about how people see Wax. And I feel like this worked really well to show not only is she at the point where she can see the problems he's causing for other people, but now how he directly impacts her life as well, and how that might not actually be a good thing. But it's near the end, and It goes, had Aradale given her the job instead of someone like Reddy because she knew Axilium? Did her studies even matter? She settled with her back against the wall, waiting for Milan. Russ, did everything always have to be about Waxilium? Of course, thinking that made her feel like a child, jealous that someone else had more blocks than she did. I just don't think she would have thought that earlier in this book or in the last book. And yeah, I think it also plays well into what Harmony says. It's like, you're causing trouble for where I wanted to get her, and I need you to get her where I want. And like Marasi noticing that and acknowledging it on her end, that does kind of feel not great, that you're not getting to a place you want to on your own merits. You're getting there because other people are pushing to get you there instead. And I can totally understand her frustration, and I'm really interested to see what Harmony really wants her to be doing in that position as well.
Well, I think what Harmony wants her to do is what we see her doing. Like, because Harmony knows the kind of person Marasi is. Can I think of a specific example? No. But it's...
I can think of one, but it isn't till the next book, so I don't think we should talk about it in this episode.
Maybe what she's doing at the end with helping with the riots and getting to the rioter and everything with the crowd. Maybe that.
To an extent, yes, but I don't think it's anything specific. Like, I don't think Harmony needs her to be in a specific place to do this specific thing. It's just like, he needs her in this position of influence to influence more things. It's like it's dominoes. It's like he needs Marasi is a domino that will set off a chain reaction. How many? Who knows how many ever?
She has a lot of potential to be the right person in the right place at a lot of different times.
As long as like she is in that position.
The next relationship that comes to my mind, of course, is Steris, and how much I love Steris, and Steris
is the best.
Oh, she is. Well, and the first time I read through it, I did not care for her until book 3. It wasn't until book 3 that she really captured my heart. But this time, knowing that I liked her a little bit more, and on top of that, I've realized that I'm very likely on the autism spectrum. So being able to read her and understanding her comments about, not getting people and not getting why people do certain things. And it was like, oh, this makes so much sense.
And with her rules of how to interact with society, that is a very autism spectrum thing, because the friend who is basically my adopted little sister, she has to create these rules of social interaction, but she has to build them for each individual person because she has to learn what certain facial expressions mean when it comes from that person, what things they say mean, and she's constantly putting those pieces together. And even so, when every once in a while she would have to come to me and say, could I just make sure that James, my husband, is he mad at me or not? I'm like, no, he's not. She's like, good, because he's so deadpan and quiet. He's a hard person to read. He doesn't emote a lot unless he's being sassy. But so it can be very difficult for someone on the spectrum to understand. So that the fact that Steris has built the rules of how to interact with society makes a lot of sense. And I think that was what really clued me into her being on the spectrum.
Well, and I love her humor. Like, hers is my favorite. Her and Wayne, I adore the humor, and they're two different types. But okay, so this person, if I invite them, would they kill you? Nah, we're fine. What about this person? If I invite them, will they kill you? They're in prison. I don't think you can invite them. Well, who would try to kill you? Wait a second. I'm paying attention. Are you trying to tell me you want somebody to try and kill me at our wedding? Well, somebody's gonna do it. Might as well plan for it. You are trying to plan for somebody killing me at our wedding. Yes?
You're trying to plan for the unplannable.
Yes.
It is great. Like Wayne's trying to be funny. Steris is just being Steris, and she's just fantastic. She just is very funny that way. Yeah,
and it's not like a funny ha we're making fun of her way. It's like she's just so genuine that you can't help but smile, and it's like, oh, you're amazing.
This is why she is the series cinnamon roll.
What?
She is the cinnamon roll of the Mistborn Era 2 series. She is the one that we love and adore and must protect at all costs.
Yep. That sounds about right.
Yeah, I did really like Steris because in this book, especially on a reread, because when you first read them, she's not in Ally Law like at all. She's in like the very beginning, the very end, and there's not much to her. And then she's in this book a bit more, but still not a huge amount. And then obviously she's in Bands of Morning loads, and you really fall in love with her then. But it's on rereading this book that I'm like, the Steris from Bands of Morning is here. She doesn't have enough time to really show who she is, but like you can clearly tell Brandon had an idea for this character and really had like a strong idea for this character, and it worked out really well. And you could tell if she had more screen time, that kind of everyone loves Steris might have come a bit earlier.
Yeah,
but we couldn't, unfortunately. But you can tell the Steris from Bands of Morning is definitely there in Shadows herself. Just.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely started adoring Steris in Shadows. I didn't see enough of her in Alloy to really understand what was going on. But once I ID'd her as autism spectrum, I'm like, I understand her now. And oh, yes, I love her. She's wonderful. This is amazing.
Speaking of Steris and relationships she has with people, the scene at the end when Wax is just dead inside for what happened with Leslie, and he's thinking about how everyone there is just annoying in a sense, and like they're not helping, and then they all leave and she just sits with him, and it's what he needs, and she was able to deduce that when nobody else could, and it's just such a great scene to see them actually interacting more, I guess.
Well, and it's just such a tender scene of just him just leaning over and just sobbing into her. And that's the scene where my heart truly breaks for him. Like on the bridge, you're horrified for him. And you're sad that he's going through this, but you've still got so much adrenaline, like secondhand adrenaline from the chase through the scene, and this and has happened, and we just found out that the governor has actually been dead for who knows how long and been being impersonated, and there's all this going on, and wait, like you go from that to the shock to you're just like, wait, what? And you're sad because it's almost more of a, I know I should be sad by this, so I am sad by this. But it's not until he just leans into Steris and starts sobbing that you really feel that's when you truly feel sad for him and feel his pain, and is in that moment.
Yeah, and that's also the moment that I realized that Steris really did genuinely care for him.
And it's also the moment where Wax lets down his shields and lets her in. And it's the moment in my mind where their relationship really kind of starts. Instead of having this on paper contract, they are finally starting to integrate together as a couple.
He stops seeing her, spoilers, next book. But at that point is really where he stops seeing her as a contract and starts seeing her as a person. Yeah.
I have chills just thinking about this scene.
Yeah, it probably the best scene in the book.
And it's such a small
in its own
one.
way.
Really, I agree. I think it's the best scene in the book, and it's such a small, almost throwaway scene.
Yeah, it's like how the emotion that really hits you in writing isn't the sad present. It's not always the sad thing happening. It's sometimes how the characters react to the sad thing happening, and that's Wax's reaction. And it's the start of that kind of emotional intimacy with Steris instead of just the contract.
The reactions is what always gets me. Like, there can be a character death, and I'm like, oh no, the character's dead, and then other characters react. I'm like, okay, now I'm like bawling tears.
Yep.
Yeah.
Speaking about Steris and her relationship with other people, her and Wax on the other side, and Wayne on the other side of it.
I really like this. I like just having two main characters. You've got like 4 or 5 main characters now. 2 of them just dislike each other completely, and I'm like, I actually liked that dynamic. It threw a wrench in the works. Not everyone's happy to get along.
Yeah.
Like,
I actually initially read it as not a complete hatred. Like, it was like sort of friendship, but in the similar way that like Wayne has the friendship with Renette, where it's not like friendship, but they're just like a bit aggressive to each other, and they're talking to people. It's like, oh no, they're
Frenemies.
Yeah, frenemies. I thought that they were frenemies, and oh no, they're not frenemies.
And then when Wayne said, "No, I find you repulsive," like, nope. It's interesting though that there have been some words of Brandon where he said that, oh no, Wayne would have reacted similarly to any woman that Wax started dating after Lessie. But you look at it and you go, Brandon, have you reread some of this? Because the way he was pushing Marasi at her, at him, he just kept trying to, no, this is the one you should be dating, over and over. And it's like, so it makes me wonder about that wob. And would Wayne have acted differently if Wax had just started dating Marasi off the bat? Would he have still been a brat? Probably less of a brat, at least. But it's curious because I wonder about that dynamic because of what we see on the page versus what Brandon tells us.
I think I will agree with Brandon because I think one of the reasons that Wayne like focuses so much on Marasi and tries to push them together is because she's not Steris. But if it had been Marasi, it's like he would have pushed someone else at him.
Or just would have been an annoying brat to Marasi. Anyway, Marasi was a good excuse in this case.
And I wonder whether Wayne actually thought, like, he was pushing Marasi towards Wax, but maybe he didn't actually think anything was going to happen, hence why he was happy to be friendly with her, because she'd never get with Wax, actually, but it's kind of fun to try and matchmake.
Yeah.
I remember I think it was actually an Alloy, where he has this thought, Wayne's thinking, Lessie was a great girl and all, but Wax was still had that hollow look to him and seemed to think that a new love would bring him back to life. So, and you get that moment of him knowing that Wax is still really upset, but maybe Wayne was more attached to Lessie than he wants himself to think.
Yes, that is actually leads into the point I was trying to make, is that I think Wayne's resistance to Wax moving on has more to do with himself than any woman in particular. Because Lessie wasn't just Wax's basically wife. It's like she was Wayne's older sister, basically. It's like she was important to him as well. And so it's like, I don't think so. He isn't quite ready to move on from Lessie, so he assumes Wax can't be.
I think. And Palm still had some attachments to them too, because I remember her telling Wax that, I just couldn't bring myself to kill him when she's talking about Wayne. That was my big clue of this is actually Lessie. This is that was because she still had the emotional attachment to Wayne, so she couldn't kill him.
I really like that idea. I hadn't thought about that at all.
The way I always saw kind of the way that Wayne pushing Marasi instead of Steris was Wayne got to know Steris as that kind of in that role of replacing Lessie. Like they were betrothed when Wax and Steris were betrothed when they met. He got to know Marasi as like part of their group as just like a person separate from Wax. And so he got to know the person, Marasi, and then he was like, no, actually, yeah, this isn't a replacement to Leslie. She's her own person. She's different. I think she'd be great for Wax. Unlike that Steris who's just trying to get in where Leslie was.
Yeah.
And because when he does eventually get in, to know Steris, he does warm to her a little bit.
I think there's also an aspect of Wayne being jealous of people who may potentially take Wax away from him, because he is devoted to Wax, and it's quite the friendship they have. And it reminds me of the scene in the bar where he's building the card towers, and he always cheats just to see if Wax can pick up on how he's cheating. And it also kind of goes the other way, because later there's a Wayne chapter, he's out of Benderloy, and he thinks, oh, if only Wax was here, because he always carries some on him. And like, they're so close, and I feel like part of it is Wayne is worried that he's gonna lose Wax, and particularly with Leslie's death, like, Wax is his connection. He doesn't seem to have all that many other really close connections. So if Wax is gone, then what will he do?
And Wax left him once.
Yeah.
And didn't come back. I think that is a big chunk of why Wayne followed him to Elendil so late. It's
definitely.
like, he'll be back. He's not back.
Yeah. He was waiting. He was waiting for Wax.
Now I need an excuse to go follow him. Oh, here it is. Okay, time to go.
Oh, I bet you if we were to see that, like those scenes, it would be he'll be back. He'll miss me. He's not back. He's not coming back for me. How dare he? And by the time you hit that scene where he comes back, it wouldn't be here's an excuse. It's he can't live without me. He will never figure this out without me. Like, he convinces himself. He convinces himself that he's doing this as a favor, and that's why he's like, okay, I'm gone now. But like, he pretends like he's going to leave throughout that entire first book, and happens to just be in the same place each time.
Feels like he's waiting for Wax to ask him to stay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wayne is so good at mental gymnastics that sometimes I think he tricks himself.
Yes,
he does.
Oh, 100%.
And he messes with himself, because that whole scene with him and the girl, the daughter of the man he killed, is a lot of him focusing on himself and what he deserves. He is punishing himself by making him face her every month, but he's never thinking of her as a separate person and what his presence is doing to her. And the thing of it is, Wax, I feel like, is really close to figuring out why this is a problem, but he doesn't seem to have quite put his finger on it, because he's so used to Wayne that he hasn't worked it out. But he's just that moment of, you don't have to do it in person. Like, yeah, I do. And he knows that there's a reason, that there's an argument there, but he hasn't found it yet. And all he needed to do is to tell Wayne is, look, how fair is it to her that she has to look at the man who killed her father every month? And I think that Wax could have gotten through to him and made him back off. But
if anyone could, it would be Wax. I don't think anybody else could.
I think Marasi could.
Marasi could, after bludgeoning him for a while.
I think that she actually probably, because Marasi just says it straight. She has a thought, she says it. And Wayne reacts really well to that. Whenever Marasi is like, you shouldn't do that, he's like, yeah, I totally should. You shouldn't do that. Yeah, I totally should. Marasi is like, Wayne, shouldn't do it, and here's why.
But Marasi doesn't know that he's doing this.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have the opportunity to call him out. And all of these things make sense for the characters. I mean, I still adore Wayne, but I also really want someone to smack him upside the head with this. And I want him to start thinking, playing a part less and thinking about who he really is more. And he needs to gain that self-awareness in order to hit the next level of character growth, which, I mean, he does do some growing, especially in bands, but he's missing that peace in order to ascend to the next level of persondom.
Can I say that scene that is both hilarious, like, because you don't know what the end point is.
Yeah.
You just know he's talking about going on a mission, and it's a monthly mission, and Wayne or Wax reacts kind of weird when he's like, I gotta go. No, you don't. Yes, I do. Oh, you're doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the things. I love the scene, but I'm also mad at Wayne for doing what he did. It's funny because I enjoy the shenanigans, and I do think it makes a lot of sense for the character.
Yeah, like I think it shows so much about who Wayne is in that scene. But I'm exactly the same as you. I just want to scream. It's like,
Just like,
dude,
can you stop hating
thinking
yourself for
just
long
about
enough?
yourself. This is an X book thing, but I totally actually agree with you about Marasi because of things that happen in bands. And oh god, I love their friendship so much.
Speaking about love relationships so much, Wayne and Milan.
Oh yeah.
She is going to be either the best thing or the worst thing for him, and I can't make up my mind which.
Yeah, it's like there's not too much of a romance aspect to it in this book. Like, but it's like he sees her as like, oh, you can shapeshift. Like, that's cool. Like, it's just what he can do, but better. Because she can actually change things.
There is definitely some flirting that happens in this book.
Oh, big.
Isn't this the book with the discussion of the hat? Where he's like,
Yeah.
where they're discussing the best tech. Oh no, your accent needs to have a little bit more of this area.
Yeah, that happens this book.
Oh yeah.
accent
No, you're
discussion.
right. I didn't pick up on that. You're pretty good for not being a Condra. It's the hat. You gotta have a good hat. And I love that discussion. Not even romance, not anything else. I just love that discussion of a master being excited, because you can see he's excited to talk to somebody who gets it.
And I love her revelation of, oh, I get it. You're full of And it's just great. Their dynamic is wonderful.
Yeah.
We need more scenes with them.
I have just a small relationship thing that I noticed, and it's just like a little fun thing, and it's Wax and Lord Harms. Because in the first book, Lord Harms doesn't like Wax. Like, he kind of tolerates him a lot of the time, particularly at the beginning, but he doesn't actually seem to be very enthused about him. And then in this book, when Wax turns up to hide him because he thinks that he's being targeted, Lord Harms just like jumps up and is like, where's the bad guy? What can I do? And he's just firstly so into it, but that change in the relationship between them, it was just such a small thing, but I loved it so much.
It tells you a lot of what's been going on off screen too.
Yeah. Definitely.
And it is also amusing to think that Lord Harms is just on a rooftop for the last part of
Like that
the
entire
book.
night.
Yeah, just like chilling.
Until he shows back up and he's like, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing? Oh, I'm staying? Okay, I can do that. I can stay right here.
Like, I have the actual passage from when Wax first, like, bursts through the windows, and it's just Harms leapt to his feet and rushed over to Wax, holding his gun in two hands. Where are they? Harms exclaimed. We can take them. Ayo, boy, you have a gun. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. After what happened last year, I realized that a man has to be armed. What's the emergency? I'll have your back. It's such a turnaround. It's great. It's so great.
It's so cute.
We saw TenSoon again.
Oh, yeah, that was cool.
I
Of course
wanted,
we did.
Yeah,
TenSoon being old and crusty, it was great.
I mean, he was old and crusty in Era 1 too.
Yes.
But he's just even more so now.
He's even
so grumpy.
older and crustier now.
he's just like, no, I don't care. No.
And he, like, the thing with the Suni pops, and he's like, oh my god, just don't mention that.
Oh, that was great.
Mhm.
But everyone loves you.
It's like, yeah, but I
Yeah.
don't want them to. Go away.
He's still wearing a dog's body.
Mm.
The thing he said he hated so much in Era 1, and it grew on him. Or he
Literally.
grew on the dog
He
pose.
girls it down.
Well, and doesn't he show at one point Marasi asks him, or is it Wax
It's
that asks
Wax.
him what were they really like? And it's fun to see like his point of view a little bit and just kind of him being able to discuss them.
You can really see how much he misses Vin. Because you can see, I think a lot of the reason why he still walks around in Wolfhound Bones is because he never really got to say goodbye to her. I mean, they never connected in Hero of Ages at all.
And the Wolfhound was his connection with her.
Oh, no, I'm sad that Vin never gets to say goodbye to a dog.
I know.
They were really sad for TenSoon.
I'm glad the camera can't pick up how my eyes are actually kind of watered right now.
Oh, no.
I mean, we see a little bit, like, they go to the terrace village at one point, and Wax interacts with his grandmother of Waffendel. And it's not a pleasant conversation. It's like there's definitely some tension there. I don't know how much there is to discuss about that.
Yeah,
Not a lot.
Not a lot in this book. It's more interesting in context with what we know from the next book.
Thank you for watching. You can find us at 17thchart.com for all the news, discussion, theories, and fun you could ever want. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud. You can leave us a review on iTunes. You can subscribe on YouTube, and you can also support us on Patreon. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.